Ever felt a chill down your spine watching old VHS tapes? Or played a game where reality itself seems to be breaking down? You're not alone. These experiences tap into our primal fear. The fear of the unknown. The fear of what we can't explain. Growing up, horror has always been a fascinating thing to me. Scary stories, paranormal films, write-ups on unexplainable beings. It's almost second nature for us to be engrossed or curious when telling campfire stories with some friends. And if you're like me, the suspense is what drives you in to certain films or games. Two particular styles of the horror genre that live to be spontaneous are analog horror and anomaly games. These two styles masterfully exploit our anxieties about media and memory. And today, I made a list of my favorite analog style films and anomaly games. So, if you're ready to be spooked, grab some snacks, hit the light, and let's dive into CEDA, or the Civil Emergency and Defense Agency, is an organization within the Left 4 Dead universe that are based on real-life agencies. Left 4 Dead is a co-op zombie shooter that released on PC and Xbox 360, developed by Turtle Rock Studios and published by Valve. In the lore of Left 4 Dead, CEDA was trying to contain the green flu virus before it spread, but ultimately failed. The green flu is essentially what makes everyone turn into flesh-eating monsters.
Day after day, night after night, the world becomes more grim.
And these 8 immune survivors have to do whatever it takes to not end up like the ones supposedly trying to save the world. This channel puts a spin on the mysteries of CEDA and puts dedication into this analog series, having 31 extremely high quality videos at the time of recording. In this alternative timeline, CEDA was handing out care packages to those who were arriving at the safe rooms, along with VHS tapes that include information on the outbreak. There are even new special infected that go along with the world building they created. If you don't already know, Left 4 Dead have common and special infected. The special infected being the tank, the witch, the charger, the jockey, the hunter, the spitter, the boomer, and the smoker. All having these names due to their abilities or having something they resemble. As you see in the base game itself, 2 weeks after the infection started, the zombies were mutating into these abnormal infected at a rapid pace. With that being said, this analog series uses the lore from the game to see how the green flu epidemic has evolved with these horrifying new creatures. The Starer, an infected seemingly stronger than a tank, being able to break through safe room doors. The Whisperer, an infected that is able to speak, manipulating you. This one is an interesting one, because it begs the question, is that person still alive in there, just with a new host? Claws, which is an infected that seemed to have taken over the whole mall, leaving many armed CEDA soldiers in the void. Overall, it's fascinating what someone can create using a world from a game that dates back to 2008. The way this series leaves you wanting more is truly unreal. From the way they use the lore in the game to add substance, to supplying a twist on an analog horror trope. Who knew these two worlds could mesh? You open your eyes inside an elevator to stare at yourself. You hear a voice above congratulating you on being the newest cabin inspector. You're instructed to inspect cabins due to a legal dispute, a case that falsely claims that the cabins this protagonist will see in a moment are haunted. The rules of this game are simple. Inspect the whole cabin. If haunted, turn back and press danger. If safe, press clear. Any movement means that the cabin is haunted. You walk up to the first cabin and hear a strong gust of wind. You open the door and start your assignment. There's a picture of a woman on the wall that stares at you menacingly. You turn around and there's a man sitting at the table, still. A fireplace just in shot and a window with a view of the outside. You're still in the facility. What's there to be afraid of? You inch closer in to the frozen man at the table. No movement. You turn to your left to see a set of stairs. You head up and discover an old box TV and a boy with a cloth over his head. There's a frog plush on the chair next to him. Still, nothing has moved. It's just you, the sound of your footsteps, and the shadows bouncing off the wall. You head back downstairs to walk out the door, but you start to hear footsteps coming behind you. How is that possible? Is someone playing with me? You don't even choose to look back. You rush out the front door, click danger, and this one lights up. This is the Cabin Factory. Developed by International Cat Studios and published by Future Friend Games. A 60-minute anomaly horror game that puts you in a world of liminal spaces and frightening storytelling, inspired by games like PT and Exit 8. This game puts you in the shoes of Greta, the main protagonist, who is set to find out a deeper story than what she is really doing at this inspection job. The thing about this horror game is it doesn't hold your hand. Like most Anomaly games, trials and errors will happen. You are forced to look around thoroughly and decide whether or not you have spotted something out of the ordinary. This is a way of playing with what you believe to be right. Things could change inside the cabin, but it doesn't mean it's haunted, giving you a sense of uneasiness because you don't know what will happen next. But if you catch something out of the corner of your eye, you better make sure you make it out that door.
As you can see behind me here, we have a few gravestones, but what you can't—
Teleforum is an analog VHS horror game developed by Monumental Collab. You play as the cameraman, and you're on your way to the apartment of a now deceased journalist, Walter Martins, who was a host of a broadcast named Teleforum, and during it, he had taken his own life. You're here to record an interview with his now widowed wife. You're not too sure if this is the best thing, but Juliana, your coworker, could use the story, and you could use the exposure. You arrive at the door, your partner asks, what would look better on camera? Ringing the doorbell or knocking? The fact that you forget you were already recording makes you feel a certain way. You ring the doorbell, but there's nothing. You ring the doorbell again and start chatting with your partner. You ask if Juliana has worked with Walter for long. She responds saying this. And then, you hear the door unlock with an elderly woman named Adriana Martins peeking out the door. What do you want? She asks. Juliana informs her that the two are from Channel 8, making a retrospective on her husband. Wanting to get some things off her chest, Adriana Martins lets the two of you inside her apartment.
Darkness creeping over Miss Martin's body as she stands in the hall.
She politely offers you some coffee and fades into the kitchen. Juliana then tells you to get any and all content you see inside her house. It feels like you're protruding into someone's personal life a bit too much, but I guess you have a job to do. You see Walter's dog, his certificates, some of the couple's decor, and a VCR player. Martins fades in, hands Juliana her freshly made coffee, and offers you a cup as well. You decline, and at this point, Martins wants to get this interview over with, and deep down, so do you. The three of you set up in the living room and commence. As Adriana sits in front of you, you can barely make out her face, having your stomach sink to the floor. Your partner kicks it off with, before you decide to ask about some items in the house. Martins answers and lays down some backstory before she cannot answer anything further. Juliana decides the two of you have enough material, explaining to Miss Martins that no one could have expected this to happen. She still can't even believe that Walter was handling a gun. There's a pause. The already distraught widow says, "Gun? What gun? Walter never had a gun." There's a change in the atmosphere. And then you're asked about what you heard on Walter's death. You really don't know what option is best scenario, but I guess there really isn't one. You decide to say that he took poison, and that's when Martins brings up the tape of the broadcast that Walter told his wife she was never allowed to watch. She hands over the tape to the coworker and explains she's too exhausted, wants nothing to do with this, and she exits her apartment to have a cigarette. Juliana asks you if you're staying to watch. I mean, you come this far, why the hell would you turn back now? Knowing it's the wrong option, the two of you pop the tape into the VCR. You set up the camera and Juliana is getting her first reactions on film. She asks if these symbols mean anything to you. You just say, "Looking at this makes my head hurt." She tells you, "It's the eyes?" before the screen changes. There's a green looking room on the TV. You can hardly even see with Juliana's head in the way. She asks what this is, and you can only answer honestly. It's like a museum. Juliana says, And then you hear the both of you are thrown off. She asks what's being said. Not hearing much of anything, you take the middle road. No one can understand anything, so she turns up the volume once more. The VHS goes blink, and you ask, "Hey, you okay?" But then you look different today. This is a psychological horror game that plays with your mental more than you would expect, giving you that fear of the unspecified. If you'd like to uncover this mystery for yourself, this game is actually free on Steam, so be sure to give it a run. With that being said, let's check out the next. There's a pamphlet that reads the following: if all is in order, proceed into the private room. If you encounter an anomaly, turn back. Easy. You step inside and see a man cleaning at the bar. Unlike the cabin factory, there are people moving around. Your objective is to spot anything that isn't like this very first room that you're walking through. After studying it, you step through the private room to hear the first bell. The game has now begun. Spot any and all anomalies that you may encounter. And let's just say, this game does not hold back. I ended up second guessing myself a lot of the time. I don't know if it's because there are so many different things that could change and you can encounter, or if being in the situation makes me lose focus on what I thought I remembered. Other times, however, they'll throw anomalies right in your face by having bells fly around you, or making this guy huge. It's an amazing roller coaster ride for the subgenre, and it had an ending I was not even expecting. This is The 10 Bells, developed by Hilfert Games and Acrylic Pixel. A game that leaves shivers down your spine and also keeps you engaged every time you find something that really shouldn't even be there. What's great about these types of games are that anyone can pick them up and know exactly what to do when playing them. The rules are always the same. You click a button to decipher an anomaly, or you head into a certain direction. The beauty behind these games is that they're easy to learn. You just pick up, find the anomaly, and act accordingly. But will you? The fear of large objects or things. Think the Mind Flayer, or even Godzilla, for example. I mean, animals like the giraffe even scare people. Again, there are many massive beings that are chilling, sure, but the way this channel does their megalophobia analog horror series is hair-raising. Imagine walking somewhere you're not familiar with, stranded, covered by nothing but fog, and then you stumble upon, this. A lot of these creatures look like something straight out of Stranger Things or Jordan Peele's Nope. The thought of something being as big as a mountain would be petrifying, let alone seeing something as abstract as this. There's also something very artistic when seeing these films. The environments chosen look like they could be in the distant future or even the past. And there is some really great 3D work that, if real, I'd be going crazy. The dark themes and messages behind videos like Creatures of End Time felt so authentic. Almost as if it wouldn't be far-fetched for someone to document videos and put them out in the world while beings like this tragically rule it. It's funny how the analog style, while VHS tapes pretty much being extinct now, is still around to this very day. The aesthetic of the found footage, grainy video can be ominous, and it's weird that something visually dated can trick you to feel a certain way when watching, bleeding into games like Observation Duty. These subgenres have been captivating to see evolve over the years, with movies like Cloverfield and the classic Blair Witch taunting the media with how far they can stretch horror, and games like Exit 8 and Shinkansen Zero making you overthink about what you've seen. I truly don't think we have scratched the surface on what we can create. Whether it's something like The Backrooms, or a new game that will trip everyone out, are you going to be there when it consumes you?